You know when a hard truth sits in your chest and refuses to be ignored. It begins quietly. A restlessness, a sense that the man you are is not yet the man you could be. Every man hears this call at some point in his life. The call to do something hard, to step into the unknown, to chase the thing he's been avoiding, to build the strength he knows he lacks, to finally confront the part of himself he has kept weak for too long. This is where the journey begins, not with confidence, not with clarity, not with success, but with a whisper. You need to try, even if it breaks you. And the only way to cross that line is through difficulty. Hard things have a strange power. They strip away the noise of the world. They silence excuses. They reveal the truth of your character. And somewhere inside that struggle, you begin to meet yourself. You learn quickly that easy things never change you. Comfort never strengthens you. Avoidance never frees you. You grow only when something pushes back. And if you listen closely, you'll notice that life constantly offers you these moments. Small openings where you can step forward, take a risk, face the challenge, and choose the harder path. Most men ignore them. Most men run. Most men wait until they are forced into action by crisis or pain. But a stronger man learns to go willingly. He learns to wake up one morning and say, I'm going to do the thing that scares me. I'm going to chase the thing that tests me, not because I'm ready, but because I must. But a man who embraces it becomes formidable. Yet choosing the hard path comes with a promise, one you must accept before you take your first step. You must understand something essential. Failure is not a punishment. Failure is not a sign that you're unworthy. Failure is not the universe rejecting you. Failure is the doorway, the gateway, the initiation. No man becomes strong without walking through it. And this is where your journey begins, not in victory, but in the willingness to step toward what will challenge you, defeat you, humble you, and ultimately refine you. The first step is always the most fragile. It feels like trembling. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like stepping off the edge of a world you once knew. You may hear the voice of doubt rise up inside you. Who are you to attempt this? What if you fail again? What if you embarrass yourself? What if you waste your time? They understood that greatness is not earned through ease, but through choosing the difficult road again and again until the path itself bends in your favor. And so the beginning of this story, your story, is not about strength. It is about choosing to test yourself, choosing to walk into the unknown, choosing to carry the weight you have been avoiding, choosing difficulty, intentionally, repeatedly, purposefully. Because to do something hard is to declare war on the weaker version of yourself. It is to look yourself in the mirror and say, I will not live as a spectator. I will not shrink from the life I want. I will not be ruled by fear or comfort. That choice rewrites your identity. It shifts the way you breathe. It sharpens the way you walk. It straightens the way you stand. Because when you choose difficulty, you step into alignment with something ancient, the part of you that remembers you were built to struggle, built to endure, built to chase, built to overcome. You step into the lineage of men who became who they were through hardship, not ease. Men who shaped themselves through resistance, not comfort. Men who embraced the challenge, not because they wanted to win, but because they needed to grow. So this is where your journey opens, a mind wrestling between comfort and calling, a body ready to move, uncertain but willing. You choose to do something hard, knowing it will test you, knowing it will shake you, knowing it will hurt you, knowing it will break you, but also knowing it will build you. This is the beginning, the first breath, the first step, the quiet promise whispered into the dark, but deep down, you do. Every man feels it, that first bruise to the ego, that first reminder that wanting something and earning it are not the same, that the path you chose is harder than you imagined. And slowly, the failures grow. The mistakes multiply. The gap between your effort and your results widens. You wake up one morning and realize, this is not going the way I hoped. And failure is the currency. You will fall short not because you're weak, but because you're learning. And learning is messy, yet the mind hates this process. The ego resists it. It whispers, this shouldn't be happening. You're better than this. Maybe you're not meant for this path. Maybe you should quit before it gets worse. It's a psychological free fall. You try, you fail, you try again, you fail harder. And with each failure, something inside you begins to crack. Not your strength, but your illusions. You lose the fantasy that this journey will be smooth. You lose the belief that effort automatically means success. You lose the childish expectation that you can transform without sacrifice. Failure strips you. It removes your comfort, your pride, your image of yourself, until all that remains is the truth. And this truth is heavy. You will question your path. You will question your abilities. You will question whether you have what it takes. You will feel shame, disappointment, and the quiet ache of falling short of your own expectations. This is the part no one talks about. The internal collapse, the private trembling, the long nights where your mind keeps replaying everything you did wrong. Not once, but in a loop. Every mistake, every slip, every regret. And in the silence, you feel it. The weight of failure pressing into your chest. But here's the paradox. The descent is necessary. It is part of the masculine journey. It is the crucible where your foundations are tested, where your values are exposed, where your determination is no longer a theory, but a lived reality. Because only in the fall do you learn why you stand. Only through collapse do you learn what needs rebuilding. Only through failure do you learn what must change. A man who has never failed is a man who has never gone beyond his limits. And a man who has never gone beyond his limits has never truly met himself. There is a moment, and you will feel it, where the failures begin to build pressure inside you. You want to scream. You want to break something. You want to disappear. You want to pretend the whole thing never mattered. But beneath that frustration is something ancient, the stirring of will. Because failure, when it becomes unbearable, forces a question. How badly do you want this? But if you push through, if you let yourself sit in the discomfort, if you allow the failures to teach you instead of destroy you, every setback exposes a blind spot. Every disappointment teaches you something you were too stubborn to see before. This is the descent, and it feels like drowning. But it is actually reshaping you. Because failure forces self-confrontation. It forces humility. It forces honesty. And without those qualities, no man evolves. You must be broken in order to be rebuilt, not shattered beyond repair, but cracked open just enough to let the truth in. And here's the harsh reality. You will fail more than once, more than twice, more than you want to admit. At some point, you will wonder if the universe is laughing at you, if you're cursed, if you're simply not meant to succeed. But remember this. Every man who ever succeeded first lived through a season where everything he touched seemed to fall apart. The difference was not ability, it was endurance. So when you stand in the ruins of your early attempts, when you feel tired, discouraged, embarrassed, frustrated, when it feels like the world is moving forward without you, because you cannot ascend without first falling, and you cannot win without first losing. This is the phase where most men quit, but it is also the phase where great men are born. You are in the fire, and although it burns, it is forging you. The failures are not defeating you, they are preparing you. And one day soon, you will look back and understand why you needed every single one of them. There comes a moment in every man's journey when the noise fades, and all that remains is himself, not the version he shows the world, not the one built from confidence or ambition, but the raw, unfiltered truth, the man beneath the armor. This moment usually arrives after failure has done its work, after enough disappointments have accumulated, After the ego has taken enough blows that it can no longer pretend, after the weight of reality finally presses you into stillness, you stand there, surrounded by the ruins of your early attempts, and for the first time, you see yourself clearly. No excuses, no distractions, no fantasies, just you. It is an uncomfortable meeting, almost painful, because every man carries parts of himself he'd rather avoid. The unresolved fears, the old wounds, the habits that sabotage him, the insecurities he buries beneath work, pride, or performance. The shadow he hopes no one ever sees. Failure rips away the veil, and in the silence that follows, you come face to face with your shadow. Carl Jung warned that until a man confronts his shadow, it will rule him from the dark. This is the moment when his words become real. You realize that the obstacles you face are not just external, they are internal. Self-doubt, fear of rejection, paralysis from perfectionism, attachment to comfort, the fear of truly committing to something, in case you're not enough. And once you see these patterns, you can no longer deny them. This is the psychological turning point. Not the moment of triumph, not the moment of breakthrough, but the moment of truth. You begin asking yourself difficult questions. Why do I fear failing again? What am I avoiding? What part of me collapses under pressure? Why do I quit when things get hard? Why do I chase distraction instead of discipline? What am I scared will happen if I actually succeed? They peel back the layers you've built to protect your identity. And the more honest you become, the more you realize something essential. You start to notice the patterns that shape your life, not as accidents, but as reflections of your psychology. The hesitation before difficult tasks, the tendency to self-sabotage when progress appears, the desire to withdraw when challenged, the need for validation before taking action, the addiction to comfort disguised as rest, and they are telling you exactly where you need to grow. Most men never reach this depth because they run at the first sign of discomfort. They numb themselves with entertainment. They drown their doubts in noise. They hide behind routines that keep them safe but stagnant. But if you continue the journey, if you stay present in the discomfort, you unlock something few men ever reach. Because once you see your weaknesses clearly, you can no longer lie to yourself. You can no longer pretend your life will change one day. You can no longer hide behind talent or potential. You can no longer live as a spectator. You must act. But before action comes acceptance. Acceptance of your flaws. Acceptance of your fears. Acceptance of your patterns of avoidance. Acceptance of the fact that you are responsible for your life. Not your parents, not society, not luck, not circumstance. When you look into the ruins of your failed attempts, you see the truth written clearly. Some numb themselves. Some run back to comfort. Some pretend they never cared in the first place. Some drown in self-pity. But a different kind of man emerges when he chooses to stay, to face the truth, to embrace the discomfort, to study his failures instead of fleeing from them. This man begins to transform, not by motivation, not by hype, not by external pressure, but by clarity. He starts to understand his own psychology, the fears, the wounds, the insecurities, not as enemies, but as parts of himself that must be integrated. The anger becomes fuel, the fear becomes direction, the doubt becomes awareness, the shame becomes humility, the weakness becomes the blueprint for strength. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" More prepared to handle difficulty without collapsing. This is where resilience is born. Not in the victory, not in the glory, not in the moment where everyone praises you. Resilience is born here, in the quiet confrontation with the parts of yourself you have avoided for years. It is forged in the solitude of failure, hardened through honesty, tempered through self-reflection. And from this place, something extraordinary begins to happen. Not with arrogance, but with a quiet strength, the kind that only comes from knowing yourself completely. In the ruins, you found truth. In the failures, you found clarity. In the silence, you found the man you must become. And now, you are ready to rebuild. Rebuilding does not begin with excitement. It begins with humility. After you have faced yourself in the ruins, after the illusions have fallen, after the truth has settled into your bones, there is a quiet moment where you realize this is where most men turn away, not because the task is too difficult, but because it is too ordinary. The rebuilding of discipline is not a grand event. It is a series of small choices, daily choices, private choices, uncelebrated choices. It is waking up when you don't want to. It is doing the task when your mind tells you to rest. It is returning to the plan even after failing 100 times. It is choosing alignment over impulse, again and again. This is how a man rebuilds himself. Not in sudden transformation, but in quiet repetition. And repetition is a strange teacher. It is boring. It is predictable. It is uncreative. But it works. Because discipline is not built through inspiration. It is built through consistency. When you repeat a difficult action, the muscles adapt, the mind adjusts, the spirit strengthens. What once felt impossible becomes routine, and what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This is the psychology of resilience. A resilient man is not one who avoids difficulty. He is one who trains himself to withstand it. And that training begins the moment you choose to rebuild. But rebuilding requires something else, something deeper, a willingness to start small. Your ego will resist this. It will want to return to the top immediately. It will want big results, fast outcomes, instant progress. It will whisper, "You've fallen behind. You need to catch up. You need to prove yourself." Steady effort is the language of strength. So you begin with small steps, not because you are incapable of more, but because you are wise enough to understand that rebuilding requires patience. A single hour of hard work means nothing without continuity. A single day of discipline is a spark, but 1,000 days is a fire that cannot be extinguished. You are building the fire now. Each small choice is a log placed carefully. Each repetition is a flame catching. Each return to the path is oxygen feeding the blaze, and slowly, the fire grows. You begin to feel different, not powerful, not victorious, not unstoppable, just aligned. You wake up with a clearer sense of purpose. You move with a quieter confidence. You stand with a steadier posture. Your mind becomes less noisy, your emotions less reactive, your energy more stable. This is what discipline does. It organizes your inner world. But rebuilding discipline alone is not enough. You must also rebuild your will. Willpower is not about force. It is not about motivation. It is not about hype. Willpower is the capacity to choose your path, not once, but repeatedly, especially when everything in you wants to stop. And willpower is strengthened the same way a muscle is, by pushing slightly beyond your limit, resting and returning again. You train it in the moments you want to quit. You develop it when you choose the difficult option. You refine it when you endure discomfort without complaint. Every time you push back against ease, your will expands. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, your will hardens. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your will grows roots. And these roots matter because without them, you are easily pulled off course. With them, you become immovable. A man with weak will is controlled by impulses, moods, and distractions. A man with strong will is controlled by purpose, and purpose is what begins to return to you during the rebuilding. At first, it comes as a faint sensation, a subtle direction, a quiet pull, a sense that your life is no longer drifting. You begin to remember why you started the journey, not the superficial reasons, but the deeper ones. Something inside you wants to grow. Something inside you wants to rise. Something inside you wants to honor the man you know you can become. This is purpose awakening. And once purpose awakens, it becomes easier to endure the struggle. Not because the struggle lessens, but because it finally feels meaningful. You no longer see setbacks as signs of failure. You see them as part of the training. You no longer crumble at the first sign of difficulty. You study it. You no longer expect the path to be smooth. You expect it to test you. And this shift changes everything. You become calmer, more patient, more focused, more grounded. You start to understand that discipline is not punishment. It is alignment. It is the structure that supports your evolution. It is the frame that holds your transformation. It is the consistent action that turns ideas into identity. But there is one final element in this rebuilding, the one most men avoid: sacrifice. You cannot rebuild the man you want to be while clinging to the habits of the man you used to be. There are things you must let go of: old patterns, old distractions, old relationships, old comforts, old identities. Some of these will feel like losses. Some will feel like amputations. Some will feel like tearing away a part of yourself. But understand this: you stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop apologizing for wanting more from yourself. You begin to live as the man who does the work, the man who endures the repetition, the man who embraces the difficulty, the man who understands that consistency is more powerful than intensity, the man who refuses to abandon his path even on the hardest days. And slowly, you realize you are becoming someone you can respect. Your foundation strengthens, your resolve deepens, your identity shifts. Not because you won anything yet, but because you rebuilt yourself from the inside out. This is the quiet transformation, the part no one claps for, the part few men ever complete. But this is where the rise begins. And soon, you will feel it. Not victory, but momentum. The subtle pull upward, the sense that the darkness is thinning, the feeling that you are climbing again. You rebuilt discipline. You rebuilt will. You rebuilt the man who will not break. Now, you are ready to rise. Rising is not a dramatic moment. It is not a sudden breakthrough or a burst of triumph. It is a quiet returning, a slow, steady ascent that begins long before anyone notices. After the rebuilding, something subtle shifts inside you. You feel it before you see it. A calmness in the mind, a steadiness in the breath, a sense that your feet are planted differently on the ground, not lighter, not faster, but firmer. You are not the man who fell, not anymore, and the world begins to respond. Tasks that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. Challenges that used to shake you now feel familiar. The same difficulties that once broke you now bend to you. This is the quiet rising, the phase of becoming stronger than your circumstances. But it doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like clarity. You are not rushing anymore. You are not desperate anymore. You are not seeking approval, validation, or recognition. You rise without noise, without announcement, without telling anyone. Because rising is not something you do to impress others. It is something you do to respect yourself. You begin to sense your own power returning, not the reckless kind, not the arrogant kind, but the grounded power that comes from alignment. Your actions match your values. Your habits match your goals. Your choices match your purpose. Your days are no longer random. You don't realize you've won because of some dramatic moment. You realize it because one day, you handle with ease what once broke you. The weight that crushed you before now feels manageable. The challenge that intimidated you now feels ordinary. The path that once felt impossible now feels like home. This is victory, not an explosion, but an arrival. And it hits you in a single calm moment. That moment when you pause, breathe, and understand, because you remember the man you were at the beginning. Uncertain, fearful, fragile. You remember the failures. You remember the nights you questioned everything. You remember the pain, the confusion, the weight of it all. But now, standing at the end of the path, you realize those moments weren't signs of weakness. They were the forging. Victory tastes different when you've suffered for it. It becomes quieter, deeper, more meaningful. It is not the thrill of achievement, it is the peace of becoming. Because the real victory was never the goal itself. The real victory was the transformation, the rise, the rebuilding, the discipline you carved into your bones, the resilience you grew from the ashes of your failures, the steadiness you built through repetition, sacrifice, and consistency. You win because you became a man who cannot be stopped by difficulty. A man who does not break when life turns against him. A man who does not fold when the path becomes steep. A man who does not negotiate with his weakness. This is victory, not the end of the journey, but the birth of a new identity. The identity of a man who has learned to suffer well, to endure with purpose, to rise with intention, to rebuild with discipline, to walk forward even when he fears the next step. You stand in your victory with humility, because now you understand something profound. If you had succeeded early, if the path had been smooth, if everything had gone your way, you would not have become the man you are now. The failures were the teachers. The setbacks were the sharpening. The darkness was the initiation. The struggle was the sculptor. Victory is simply the confirmation that you did not endure all that for nothing. And yet, even now, you know this is not the final destination. Because a man who has truly grown does not cling to a single victory. He does not cling to comfort. He does not freeze in place once he succeeds. He understands that life is cycles, seasons, chapters. He will be tested again. He will struggle again. He will rise again. And now he is ready. Because once you've walked through fire and rebuilt yourself, you no longer fear starting over. You no longer fear difficulty. You no longer fear failure. You've learned that pain is a guide, challenge is a compass, struggle is a forge, and victory is simply the natural result of becoming a man who refuses to bow. So when you finally stand at the summit of your long, difficult climb, take a moment, be still, let the silence pour into you, let the truth settle in your chest, and in the end, let the weight you've carried finally rest. You have walked through the fire, you have endured the fall, you have stood face to face with the parts of yourself you once avoided, and you have risen, slowly, patiently, deliberately. This closing is not a celebration, it is a recognition that you chose the harder path when every part of you wanted comfort, a recognition that you kept going when failure made the ground beneath you shake, a recognition that you rebuilt your strength one quiet, disciplined day at a time. You did what many men never do. You confronted yourself. And because of that, you changed. Feel the stillness inside you now. Feel the steadiness that wasn't there before. Feel the quiet confidence that comes from having survived your own darkness. It is real. It is earned. It belongs to you. And as you move forward, remember this. You are not defined by the man you were, nor by the failures you endured, but by the man you chose to become after everything collapsed. Carry this truth with you. Carry it into your mornings. Carry it into your work. Carry it into your relationships. Carry it into the next challenge that rises to meet you. And when the world tests you again, as it always will, meet it with the calm certainty of a man who knows his own strength. You have already proven who you are. Now live it.